Hello, Christopher here, and welcome back to the Patriot Report. At first glance, the 11th Amendment might seem like one of the more obscure parts of the Constitution, but don't let its short text fool you. This amendment tells us something essential about how power is divided in the United States. It protects state sovereignty and helps maintain the federal balance that's vital to a constitutional republic. Let's walk through what the 11th Amendment says, why it was added, and why it still matters. What the 11th Amendment actually says. Here's the text. The judicial power of the United States shall not be construed to extend to any suit in law or equity, commenced or prosecuted against one of the United States by citizens of another state, or by citizens or subjects of any foreign state. That might sound a bit legalistic, so here's the plain English version. The federal courts can't hear lawsuits brought against a state by citizens of another state or by foreign citizens. In other words, if you're from Tennessee, and you want to sue the state of Georgia in federal court, you can't do it, at least not under ordinary circumstances. The 11th Amendment blocks that. But why would this need to be in the Constitution? The background, Chisholm v. Georgia, 1793. The story of the 11th Amendment starts just a few years after the Constitution was ratified. In 1793, the Supreme Court heard a case called Chisholm v. Georgia. A man named Alexander Chisholm from South Carolina was trying to sue the state of Georgia over money owed to his deceased father's estate. Chisholm took the case straight to the Supreme Court, based on the Constitution's Article 3, which allows federal courts to hear cases between a state and citizens of another state. The court ruled in Chisholm's favor, saying that states could indeed be sued in federal court, even by citizens of other states. This ruling shocked and alarmed many Americans. Why? Because it seemed to suggest that states had lost their sovereign immunity, a legal principle going back centuries, which says you can't sue a government unless it agrees to be sued. The concern wasn't just about lawsuits, it was about state dignity and independence. If citizens from anywhere could drag a state into federal court, then the states weren't really sovereign anymore. So, in response, Congress acted quickly. The 11th Amendment is born. In 1794, just 1 year after Chisholm v. Georgia, the 11th Amendment was proposed and passed by Congress. It was ratified by the states in 1795. Its goal? To reverse the Supreme Court's decision and reaffirm the sovereignty of each state. It made clear that federal judicial power doesn't extend to private citizens suing states in federal court, unless the state consents or Congress has a specific constitutional basis for it. This was one of the first major examples of a constitutional course correction, where an unpopular court decision was overturned by a constitutional amendment. Why it matters in a constitutional republic. So, why is this important in a constitutional republic? Because in a republic like ours, government power must be both limited and balanced. The United States is not a single, centralized nation, it's a federation of states, each with its own laws, courts, and governments. The 11th Amendment helps preserve state independence, prevent federal overreach into state matters, reinforce the principle of dual sovereignty, that both the states and the federal government have their own separate spheres of authority. Without this amendment, states could have been flooded with lawsuits from out-of-state individuals or foreign citizens, all tried in federal courts. That would have placed an enormous legal and financial burden on the states, and dramatically shifted the power balance toward the federal judiciary. The founders understood that a strong union still needed strong states. The 11th Amendment is one of the mechanisms that keeps that federal balance in check. 11th Amendment in practice. Over the years, the Supreme Court has interpreted the 11th Amendment broadly. In many cases, it has extended immunity even beyond what the text strictly says. For example, citizens often can't sue their own state in federal court unless the state waives its immunity. States generally can't be sued for money damages in federal court unless Congress specifically authorizes it under powers like the 14th Amendment. There are exceptions, of course. The Supreme Court has allowed injunctive relief, where a person can sue a state official, not the state itself, to stop them from violating federal law. Congress can abrogate, override, state immunity in certain areas, like civil rights, if it's acting under a valid constitutional authority. So while the 11th Amendment doesn't give states unlimited immunity, it sets the baseline: states are generally not subject to private lawsuits in federal courts. The broader lesson. The deeper significance of the 11th Amendment is this: sovereignty matters. The founders knew that freedom is best protected when power is divided, not concentrated. The states are not provinces of the federal government, they are partners in the constitutional system. They must be shielded from excessive interference, including in the courtroom. The 11th Amendment reminds us that not every problem is a federal problem. It helps reinforce the principle that in a free society, not every dispute should be handled by the highest level of government. Local and state institutions matter, and they deserve protection. The 11th Amendment may not get as much attention as the First or Second, but it plays a vital role in the structure of American government. By preserving state sovereignty and limiting federal judicial power, it protects the balance at the heart of our constitutional republic. In an age where federal power is constantly expanding, the 11th Amendment stands as a quiet but powerful reminder: the states are not subjects of Washington, they are sovereign governments with rights, dignity, and independence. And that independence? It's not just for the benefit of the states, it's a safeguard for you, the citizen, against unchecked centralized power. Thanks for listening. I'm Christopher, and this has been the Patriot Report. Stay informed, stay free,